This video's advice of the day is, never underestimate where a small beginning can take you. Simply starting can carry you farther than you expect.
Alright, hi everybody. Today I am going to talk about a one-of-a-kind book I have here because I see a lot of pictures for this book, but I don't really think anyone's ever done a video or sharing even more pictures, because usually you'd see this front here and then the back, and that'd be really it. But this is not going to be the only book too, because it was all the way back in, well, I suppose in January when there was a video about Carl Barks, and that was how I learned about Carl Barks. But then in March, a friend bought some of his books, and then it had me go, well, in that video it talked about, yeah, he used to work for a magazine called Calgary Eye Opener, sorry, that. And there was this book I bought at the time for $30, even if you may think, oh, what is it, a big book, when in actuality, no, it's a very small book, as a matter of fact. In fact, just to give you a size comparison, here is the very first, well, chronologically, the first ever Carl Barks book, and you'll notice, compared, it's really small, and honestly a lot more like a pamphlet of sorts, but there is some good information and artwork shown in this. But yeah, I bought this for $30, and it came in like a seal and everything, and yeah, like I just wanted to compare this along with another book that I'd see come up, this one, which was a lot more expensive, but it was worth the wait. It was a bit troubling to get that book, because at first the delivery man wouldn't deliver it, and then I had to pay a fee, and yeah, I finally got the book. But what makes this even more special is that it's steel sealed. It's a bit ripped, actually, if you can look at it, but yeah, it's completely sealed, and in this video, yeah, I will be opening it for the very first time.
To give you a good rundown, what I will mainly be covering is Carl Barks' Calgary Eye Opener by Egmont Comic Collection, which came out on August 5th, 2020, and the unexpurgated Carl Barks by Hamilton Comics, which in fact was founded by Bruce Hamilton and was under the same umbrella as Another Rainbow Publishing and Gladstone Publishing. Both had made significant early attempts at collecting and preserving the Duck comics by Carl Barks. Though it should be made clear, Gladstone had done so in a more readily available fashion through comic issues, whereas Another Rainbow did archival editions for the collectors, often being real pricey, which is what makes the current Fantagraphics prints the more definitive editions, as they reach a middle ground between accessibility and being for collectors. This particular digest came out in 1997, as yes, this is not really a book, but a digest, according to my source, which explains why it's so lacking, because it's not even a proper book. That, and for whatever reason, I forgot to mention, I meant his comics as in the Duck comics. So forgive me for that flub.
Without any further ado, time to open this thing. I will mention, well, I don't need a knife actually, I can just, well, maybe I can barehand it, probably. What I can at least tell you from all I know, from having this copy, is that this is a German only, it's a cover, okay, well, that's not very a pleasing sound. Thank God I don't do, okay, you know what, maybe I might need the knife. Well, I was just gonna mention that the only thing I really know about this book, outside of the fact that, well, I'll actually tell this fact later, but a fact about this book I will say right now is this is a German book. I found that surprising. Like, I was like, really? Why is this a German book? Because this is about a magazine from the Americas. Yes, Americas, and I will explain on that later. This is based on a magazine that's from the Americas about an artist who's American, so it kind of just doesn't make any sense that you have this book here about all that, and it's a German book. Well, I mean to say a German-only book. I had to throw away the wrapping. But yes, this book right here, from Comic Collection, Comic Collection Egmont, if it will show. Which, by the way, if you are wondering, the girl on the cover actually, in fact, has a name, if you never knew. I'll even let you know about that. Like right here, her name is Rosie, you will see here. And that's her on the cover here. Oh, this is a really great presentation. I should have actually said this before I opened the book. Wait, hang on. Oh, okay. I was just wondering. Well, something I should have mentioned, actually, something funny, is that this is the only book I have here that the spine is facing a different way. Like, you can put it on your shelf, but it doesn't line up with the others. But yes, let's take a look at this. And yeah, here's the thing I was going to talk about. This is one of only, I had to zoom in, I say 1,000 to generalize it, but technically actually it's one of only 999 copies, unfortunately, which is a shame. There should be more copies, but yeah, I hope this video doesn't make the book too expensive. So the book has a very nice photo and a quote from Karl Barks, but you know, unfortunately the book is in German, so it's a lot more harder to appreciate the book when you can't really understand everything that's said in here, unfortunately. I mean, for one, it at least tells you the years of when you worked on the magazine. That's something that the other one doesn't. And it has an introduction from this guy who also did the introduction for this book, and I have a feeling when put into translation, it might be the exact same introduction, in fact.
To answer what I said here, I can tell you I was in fact completely wrong about that. As well, the pretext in the unexpurgated Karl Barks is more so a summary and not overly lengthy. Here in this proper book dedicated to his work done for the magazine, it is lengthy and not only details Barks' role in the magazine, but also the origins of the magazine too, which will be covered later on. And for those curious, here is what that Karl Barks comment says in English, albeit translated back into English from the German in this book. It seemed as if people, even in the Great Depression, would spend their last money on something that made them laugh. Well, it was my job to practically write and draw this damned magazine all by myself. There were maybe 2 or 3 struggling artists in and around Minneapolis who sold us stuff we would print. They worked all day on a cartoon and then sold it to us for $1 or $2. The crisis was really bad at that time. Karl Barks, interview with Michael Bearer, November 22nd, 1973. As for that Hard Times quote, it's to tie in with what Karl Barks said here. People must be entertained. They can't always be learning or always be working. They aren't made for that. Mr. Slurry in Charles Dickens' Hard Times. Which isn't word for word what Charles wrote, but we don't need to dwell too much on that. What I will state though, is that I did try to get what Karl Barks really said in that interview, since I had to get the text translated, but needless to say, it's a bit of a headache, so I'd rather just leave it there.
And then here we have a chapter marker where it tells all sorts of stuff, and then a glossary introduction thing over here. Yeah. Oh yeah, another thing about the scale, to at least help you, give you a good scale in this, since, you know, it's not really easy to come by. This book is, here's 2 books I got here that you should be able to more easily come by. This bitty book here, for example, where you'll notice they're roughly a similar height and a similar width. Well, not completely the same width. Which, by the way, this book is not too bad, even if it really is just a selection, like a compilation, rather than a complete kind of collection. You'd probably need a lot of volumes to collect every strip. And then another book, one that, if I know my stuff right, this came out this year, the Von Bodie book, and it's a slimmer scale too, honestly being kind of the exact as the Betty Boop book, and like I said, yeah, similar height, similar width. Like, it's basically that kind of really sturdy, nice collection kind of book. I like those kind of sort of collection books, real nice and big, even if you need to have quite the portfolio, kind of a lot of backlog to fill up a book like that, if you ever wanted one for your art. But alright, back to the book. I gave it a good flick through, and needless to say, this is a really good book, like infinitely better than compared to the American one I got right here. And funny enough, I have right next the original colors, because the thing about this book here that's interesting, I will focus on this book now, is it's funny that there's a little blurb here actually that tells you Barks wasn't entirely, no, I wouldn't say he was very disowning, but very, he didn't really care much for his Calgary Eye Opener stuff. So he didn't really have much involvement with this.
When doing research, I dug into this, and it turns out Karl Barks in fact didn't mind the reprint whatsoever. The disclaimer was added just to silence the managers of the Karl Barks studio, who both wanted a cut out of the proceeds that would have come from the sales of this digest.
It is true though that well, he would have preferred his stuff being in color. Like, you'll know how when Fantagraphics, well, I already showed you, but when they put, the Doug comics in, when they reprinted it, they colored it, because Karl Barks always wanted his comics to be colored, but, when they reprinted, they had a more smaller, color selection. And, yeah, the Calgary, cartoons, yeah, they were all printed, definitely in black and white, or like not that many color. And in this German book here, they're all printed in those original colors, whereas here, they're all colored. Like, they're all colored. I am not going to show all of this because maybe I might get taken down or something if I do that. And a surprising thing too, another thing I should tell you, is even though there is a lot of German in this book that I unfortunately cannot read, but I should totally look into getting a oh no, I'm sorry, I mean to say translate it by an app. I can at the least tell you there is in fact plenty of English in this book at the very least. Like English, like they keep the English in the cartoons. They keep all the English in the cartoons. Which honestly, this is a really great selection of his cartoons. That even the honestly, I think it has a lot more of his stuff that gives you a better idea compared to this book, where it's a lot more of just directly from the magazine, whereas here you get even more stuff from the time period when this was made. I can't entirely tell if this is my Barks. If this was, it's very ECC Gar out of everything I'm seeing here.
So while it isn't a drawing by Karl Barks, I can explain it's by Billy Hahn, who, according to this page, was actually one of Karl Barks' influences along with Charles Philippi. The book has direct quotes from Barks about how he tried to imitate their art styles. Seeing the cover for it did have me look into Billy Hahn's famous cartoon book, and I'd certainly recommend it. Really nice drawings and the kind of cartooning I quite like the most.
We'll get to more examples so I can say even more about his art. And then this is and yeah, they show a lot of the covers. They show a lot of the covers. That's something the other book didn't do. Nice butt. But that's something the other book did not do. They show way more cover examples of stuff that Karl Barks drew. Really, really great work. But the thing I really gotta show though, man, I probably am not gonna, maybe I might actually have to censor this video a bit. And now, yeah, this book, this right here, this is in the book I got here. If I can pull it up. Oh yeah, we already saw the sailor, but I'm talking about, yeah, that. It's the same, but different colors. Oh, I really like the hatching down here. That's really great hatching. I should zoom in and show you that. Look at that. That's some really nice hatching. Yeah. Bear with me. This tripod setup is not too sturdy. It's a little flimsy, but it's way better than the old one I had. Before we move on, yeah, no, I really like the patterning. Like, I like that sort of stuff. That's why I really like old American comics a lot. Because these aren't necessarily comics, these are more like cartoons, I describe it. These are more like cartoons because, before people did comics, You had illustrations, cartooning, and this is definitely like a lot more, yeah, cartooning. Like, look at that lighting, that's great. Like, yeah, this is a great book from the looks of it. I totally should give it a full-on read. And like I said, yeah, like there's all sorts of English. They keep the text and everything all in English. Like, lots of stuff is still in English, but one of the more important parts I really got to show later in the book, which that is a great book. That is a great illustration. I love it. It reminds me of one of my favorite illustrations from the Von Bodie book. I would show, but it get me actually let me look at it. I'll probably skip it if I can't show it, or if I do, maybe I can censor it. One of my favorite illustrations from the Von Bodie book. That's the thing about, you need to read your comics that you buy, because you won't really know where are they in the book. Yeah, I can't show it, but I was talking about this illustration where this is a grandmother. I like the old grandma kind of Victorian stockings, shoes, the frame, the butterflies, the flowers, and just, yeah, in general, I like it a lot, very much. That's a great piece. I like it a lot. But now then, I will continue on. Hopefully the background noise doesn't completely ruin the video, because I ditched the microphone I was using in the last video because it was really bad and added a lot more background noise. So I was like, no, I'm not using that anymore. But yeah, this is it. So there's these short stories that someone wrote, and yeah, like they're all in here, all in English. Oh no, wait, no, Carl Barks did do this, yeah, because Carl Barks had a big part in the magazine, yeah. I think in post-production I'll definitely have some parts where I basically give a lot more information as I go through this. But yeah, you'll notice here, yeah, they keep a lot of stuff in English. There's a lot of English stuff. I thought when I bought the book, oh, it's just gonna be German, but no. They keep a lot of stuff in English, so if you do want to buy the book, it's not totally a waste.
From translating the glossary, which I mistook for the introduction, turns out keeping the Carl Barks cartoons in English was a purposeful choice, as it's explained that many of the slangs and puns would be lost when translated to German. On the page where this is stated, you do get translations that earnestly try to do so. One of the earlier pages I glossed over includes the proper credits to this book, stating it was Fabian Gross that handled all the English to German translations. There is also an in memoriam dedicated to Bruce Hamilton, reading, "In memory of Bruce Hamilton, with whom it all began." As like I mentioned earlier, he played a role in publishing and editing the unexpurgated Carl Barks. The glossary also mentions that the book includes Carl Barks cartoons and lyrics from other magazines he contributed as well at the time, such as Judge and Coco. This book also gives out a clear month and year when the cartoon was published, along with defining if it came from a different magazine altogether. The unexpurgated Carl Barks does something similar, albeit in such a confusing manner that for the longest time, I just thought it was telling me the exact number of how many cartoons were in the digest.
And yeah, like, I totally like a lot of what I'm seeing in the book here. I thought I made a bad purchase, but no, it turned out to be a great buy. And like I said, because basically a lot of this stuff is in the other book too, word for word. Like retiring Rosie after trying to get in one has become fairly convinced that it may be a rumble seat in the daytime, but it's a fumble seat after dark. It's the same exact text, but look at that. It's way better presentation, like way bigger compared to this, where this is a puny tiny book that doesn't do service to all these illustrations by Carl Barks. But I definitely really gotta say this about his art, and it's that like, especially that illustration where it basically reminds me of my three favorite artists of mine all together, and it's basically like a combination of Ethel Hayes, E.C. Segar, and Dr. Seuss all wrapped up in one. Well, it's more Ethel Hayes and E.C. Segar in this whole book, honestly, but you do get some Dr. Seuss stuff like this. It looks very Dr. Seuss to me. But yeah, it's not that bad of a book. Other people would probably get a lot more out of this, but yeah, it totally sucks that a book like this is not very common necessarily to get your hands on. But yeah, but since I keep spending so much time, I should definitely spend some time more to tell you about this book I got here. This book here where I read through the whole thing, and it's not that bad of a book. You get this this forward from Art Spiegelman. That's just god awful. I really do not like Art Spiegelman. His Mouse comics are god awful. I really don't like them. They're about just awful. I do not like them at all. Terrible. That guy is very pretentious. He made a very pretentious comic about a history event that, well, is pathetic. And there's a lot more tragic things that happened in real life. But instead he made a pathetic comic that's awful, drawn like garbage. And yeah, but because he made such a piece of shit, I guess he's qualified to talk about stuff that apparently he has some say on it. Like this, where he ran on. It's not necessarily a bad forward. Like, yeah, Art Spiegelman did the forward here, and it's not entirely bad, but still, it's a forward I really don't like. I will give the book this though, and it's that it actually has a number of how many illustrations there are in this book, which is unfortunately just 30.
Remember when I said that I thought the dates were instead the number, keeping count of how many cartoons were in the digest? Well, you got to hear me think that.
30 compared to this, where you get a lot. Basically, like, nearly everything he did, essentially. Like, this is basically what this book is. Like, you get everything he did, whereas here, it's just more like a sample you get. But yeah, this forward is not very good. And then, like I mentioned, there's a introduction. A introduction from, I skipped it, sorry. Yeah, I'm skipping. Yeah, from Geoffrey Boom, and like, yeah, you get this, which I have a feeling that is the same one in this book, or maybe he wrote an entirely new one and then they put it into German. But I don't know. Yeah, the preface. And like I said, this book is alright. I guess the most notable thing I did do with this book is well, I did post on Twitter, but I did turn this, which was like a flip through, into a GIF, so you can just watch that if you don't have this book, because yeah, even though it's 30, honestly, this is more like, this should have been like $15 if you want to buy it. It should be $10. I mean, it costed it costed $10 when it came out. I paid $30 for this, and it's not, I don't really want to say it's worth it at all, because you just get a sample. Like I said, I guess it's cool that you colored it, because that's how Karl Barks would have probably wanted it, but still, like, at least compared to this, where you get everything in this is a way better book. Oh, I know someone who retweeted that. I know someone who retweeted that. Yeah, I know you. You shared that to me before. I know you. Yeah, you shared this to me. I recognize this. Very this picture right here. Yeah, you shared that with me.
Something about when I bought the book is while I paid $78.80, or roughly around $80 for the book, when taking into account the delivery fee I had to also pay up front, it led to the book costing in total $101.30, which isn't as punchy as around $100, but still. Now that I've gone over that, it's time that I tell you the background regarding Calgary Eye Opener and how Karl Barks got involved, with many of this information coming from all the text I got translated and noted down from those introduction pages. It all began in 1902 with the founding of the Eye Opener by Robert Chambers Edwards, better known as Old Bob by those closest. Born in Scotland and educated at Glasgow University, Edwards knocked around Europe and the American Midwest before finally settling in the Alberta masculine highlands. From there, he built a reputation as a fearless, mischievous newspaperman. His papers were chaotic, energetic blends of satire, political mockery, gossip, rapid-fire jokes, poems, and cartoons, all united by one guiding principle. A paper should be entertaining first, informative second. If it wasn't fun to read, Edwards didn't want it in the print. His editorial approach, described in the Eye Opener introduction, was rooted in a simple motto: make the reader laugh every week, no matter what. Edwards openly rejected respectability and refused to run a paper full of dull, proper journalism. He ignored advertisers' complaints, mocked political figures, sneered at hypocrisy, and believed deeply in the value of humor as a way to puncture pretension. His Eye Opener became infamous for its barbed political jokes, lampooning Calgary's power brokers, and sparkling regular outrage among officials who wished he'd leave. After printing for a time in High River, Edwards eventually relocated to Calgary, where the magazine adopted the name The Calgary Eye Opener and grew into one of Western Canada's most notorious humor publications. It was messy, erratic, sometimes mean-spirited, but unmistakably alive. When Edwards died in 1922, the Eye Opener lost not only its founder, but the philosophy that held the whole enterprise together. The new owners attempted to correct the magazine, according to the translated editorial texts. They tried adding moral rules, tightened editorial controls, attempted to remove the rougher jokes, and tried to formalize a magazine that had never been formal. The result? Readers hated it. The Eye Opener without Old Bob's irreverence was simply not the Eye Opener. Experiments to clean it up were abandoned, the rules reversed, and eventually the magazine was sold off entirely. By the late 1920s, the Eye Opener had drifted south across the border and found itself reborn in Minneapolis, no longer political, no longer Canadian, and no longer tied to Old Bob's world. It became an American cartoon gag magazine, assembled mostly from freelance submissions, with barely any meaningful editorial direction. And into that confused, chaotic publication stepped a young, struggling cartoonist. By 1929, Carl Barks was living in Renville, California. Struggling to find steady work, the depression was tightening, jobs were evaporating, and cartooning looked like the slim but possible lifetime. The owner at this time, Henry Hank Mayer, was desperate for dependable contributors. The Eye Opener office was flooded with amateur cartoons, off-model drawings, and jokes that weren't usable. Artists missed deadlines or simply disappeared after a submission or two. The Minneapolis operation was so disorganized that editors sometimes had to build an entire issue overnight with barely anything to work with. That's where Barks stood out. As the translated pages emphasize, his humor matched the magazine's tone. His drawings were clean and professional, and crucially, he was fast and reliable. Mayer liked his style immediately and hired him. But because the magazine was dysfunctional and often understaffed, Barks quickly found himself doing far more than a freelance contributor normally would. The editorial notes recalled that he eventually produced most of the magazine's cartoons in many issues, covers, spot illustrations, and running gags, rewrites, and redrawn submissions when other artists failed. Entire batches of filler material whenever the office ran short. The staff even joked internally that Barks was running the Eye Opener from his home because practically he was. As demand increased, Mayer urged Barks to move closer to Minneapolis. Barks and his wife briefly followed that advice, which only intensified his workload. He was now the dependable one, and the Eye Opener leaned on him relentlessly. When the editors had nothing, they called Barks. When a deadline loomed, they called Barks. When other freelancers failed, they patched issues together with Barks. By the early 1930s, the magazine had become in practice a Carl Barks publication wearing the Eye Opener name. But the pressure never eased. As the depression deepened, freelance rates dropped and deadlines tightened. And the Eye Opener relied more heavily on Barks to keep issues afloat. The constant workload combined with worsening financial strain contributed to the collapse of his marriage. After the divorce and a period of increasingly unstable living conditions, Barks finally reached a breaking point when he learned that Walt Disney's new animation studio was hiring. He applied using the huge body of Eye Opener cartoons he had produced as his portfolio. His final contribution to the magazine appeared in the Christmas issue of 1935. By early 1936, Barks had left both Minneapolis and the Calgary Eye Opener behind, heading to California to begin his career at Walt Disney's animation studio.
Okay, well, following that entire background I just gave you now, you get this little illustration. I wonder what they implied by that after that final sentence. But anyhow, let's resume to where we last off. I feel like maybe some of these drawings I should have perhaps gone over better, but like I said, I'm definitely thinking in this very one-of-a-kind video, I'm giving you a fair enough example, a sample of this entire book, where you really get to see how Barks drew people. And as I highlight, well, maybe earlier, but yeah, his style, it's really familiar to me, and this person looks very funny. But yes, I will try to return to where I resumed, where I last left off. Very, very funny jokes. I did not see this one before. But yes, it was right here. Or basically, here you get the back cover, if you've never seen that before. Like if you weren't paying attention. But yeah, you get the back cover, the entire context to it, because in this back cover here, it's kind of just zoomed in, like a zooming in, so you kind of don't get to see there's actually a wider joke. And I don't even think this here, I don't think this is actually in the digest. But anyhow, yeah, there's a lot of great cartooning in this book, and definitely after doing plenty of research, definitely looking over the book, yeah, this is a really good art book, and something I should totally explain, since you keep seeing these crop up, is what's up with these Disney illustrations being here. Yeah, it was done by Barks too, but what is this doing in a book about Calgary Eye Opener? Well, I can actually explain that for you. Where basically I looked into the publisher and Egmont Comic Collection. They've also actually done the German releases of, well, I don't know if they've done Karl Barks' comics, but they've certainly done a number of Disney comics, and a comic series they've actually reprinted over there in German is Fantagraphics' own Don Rosa's, complete Don Rosa's Duck Comics that he did. Like to all 10 volumes, basically very similar, very exact, even same measurements in the German. And honestly, because of it, it kind of makes me wish they could have another partnership where perhaps they could, I don't know, it'd be fun if, they did a little old thing of bringing over this book and over here English, and instead of it being unfortunately this very limited print that, like I said, I would really stress I hope doesn't become too expensive because of the video. There's only 999 copies. I just hope that maybe perhaps there could be interest if Fantagraphics maybe please puts out a full-on print of this book in English. And if they did that, I totally love to buy it. Even though I already have this book, I totally love to buy it again in English. Like, they keep it exact, maybe make it even more better quality. And still, like, I totally love for them to do that, because I'm totally, really enjoying this book. It's a really good collection, because I've always been curious about, well, when Karl Barks drew more people, because in the Duck comics, he always drew more funny animal characters. So it was like, oh, he used to draw people. So it's like, yeah, I always wanted to see more of that. So, like I said, it really is a shame that this is definitely definitely the best book about his time at Calgary Eye Opener. But it is a shame though that it was a German only book. Since it has that, a fun fact is that in the other one, in the digest, it actually does highlight that illustration as if I recall right, as this was one of the first things he ever did for the comic. Well, for the magazine, I mean, and yeah, It's much smaller in the digest. Yeah. I think this is actually the one instance where in the digest it actually may have been presented a bit better. This one looks a lot more higher resolution, but the colors are definitely not very color corrected, whereas here it's a lot better, but the line art is very gray. So it's very strange. If you scan this in and color corrected it, you'll basically get the best looking version. But yeah, and then something that I suppose I kind of glossed over is there is this character that I guess Barks had in these comics, his own Betty Boop, Little Gaga, I suppose she was called, and you had all sorts of these pieces where basically she's up to things, shenanigans, and all of that. I think this one is probably my favorite of all these, but yeah, they're fairly funny. But yeah, really, it is funny to see that his duck artwork crop up in this book. But like I said, I would really love if Fantagraphics did make a more wider release of this book. I think it is a great book. I'm just looking over this now because it's been a while since I've peeked over this book. Well worth the value. I must say this though, because I don't do enough colored illustrations myself, is honestly I've always liked illustrations that mainly use like color palette. Like here you'll notice uses a lot of reds, blues, and just mainly those kind of colors. In fact, it reminds me a lot of this Betty Boop short I've definitely never seen, because as a kid I never saw much of Fleischer's. In fact, it was mainly their licensed stuff because I had a lot of bootleg DVDs of Superman and Popeye that they did. But I remember there was a Betty Boop one. There was only one in color, and that one used a 2-strip color process because Disney had the 3-strip one. So as a result, that film has a very interesting look where it's very red and blue, exactly like this illustration. So yeah. And then of course you get more ducks in this because yeah, he used to be an animator before he did comics. So this is more like a cartoon collection, if anything, the more I look over this book, as a matter of fact. This was an interesting one. That reminds me a lot of, well, I already can't remember the arts, but I mean, yeah, that looks familiar. Something that I'm definitely eager to look, oh yeah, I remember that. That was also in the other book. Well, he only showed this guy, but yep, that's in here too, in the digest. Man, the digest and its weird 90s colors. Oh dear. In fact, this here just looks straight out of the digest. Was that in the digest? I don't think that was in the digest. I just wanted to say that I've actually located where he is, and turns out, nope, that is not how he actually looked in the digest. Not at all, not even close. This is the one instance where I'm actually surprised. And then what's this? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just gonna highlight this and how this spread here, because in this book, you saw like, well, no, like, basically there's definitely a few spreads in both of these books, and I think I really like about, well, definitely this proper book is that they're actually way more bigger compared to in the digest, where in the digest they're really freaking small. Like, I'm already going to pull up the comparison between these two. Yeah, here it is, where basically you'll notice this one is really tiny, but honestly I definitely really much prefer the colors in this version. It's a lot more vibrant and honestly a lot more nicer on the eyes, whereas here it's not necessarily so bad, but man, the coloring, or it's very Windows 95, I guess. Kind of just makes it, oh yeah, that's real old digest. And then I was gonna pull up if I can remember. Oh, here it is. I was gonna show that. Well, I like all these cartoons, but I was just gonna show this one is in the book, and it is right here. As a matter of fact, I think this is one of the few cartoons where I compare both of them, and I'm like, wow, they're actually nearly the same size, back to back. But yeah, I just wanted to compare that. Okay. Very, very nice illustrations. That is also in this book. Okay, I had a hard time because they made it really freaking small. But yeah, here it is, the illustration. You'll notice they made it way bigger, and actually the full page compared to here, where it's so tiny that when you're flipping through the book and you don't remember where it is, you're gonna have a hard time trying to track it down. But yeah, I will actually say this, even though it's a really dumb joke, this is just really fun. I never get tired of it. I'm pretty flat. Well, I'm pretty busted myself. I never get tired of it. That is too funny. And yeah, you definitely get even more of the hatching. I know, yeah, Warren, yeah, well, I don't know. I was just gonna joke that's the warning girl, the girl who tells you that this book totally, Carl Barks totally didn't approve of the reprint, quote unquote. I was just gonna mention that, yeah, I really never get tired of the hatching here. It's really nice stuff. I don't even think the Disney comics even kept that sort of hatching. And as I said, I've already explained why you have so many Disney illustrations. And at last here, this page I definitely was eager to talk about, where that illustration right here is a really good showcase of what I mean. Where if you look if you really look at that, I really like just everything about it. Like the faces are very Dr. Seuss to me, but then the way they're drawn, it also reminds me a lot of Seagar too. Like all the pattern right here on his pants, on like the dress, very Seagar. Because Seagar would do all sorts of patterns and stuff like that in his comics, and I always adored when he'd do that. I love that sort of thing. Great stuff that Seagar would do. Now this is an interesting spread here that I actually quite like a bit. It imparts commandments, and yeah, it's a really funny piece. I actually like it quite a bit. Very nice to look at. And yeah. And then, oh yes, this illustration here. I remember I was surprised to see it here because it's one of those illustrations that you at least see crop up. I will say this, there's this text here that all I'm going to say actually isn't too big of a deal, but here's what it actually says.
In this concept drawing for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you can see that the 7 years Barks spent at the Eye Opener had an influence on him. Flowers and trees are stylized like Art Deco book designs. The heroine has large eyes and long legs, and among the dwarves you can see stereotypical caricatures. On the right we see a Jewish shopkeeper, a hillbilly in woman's clothing, and Mahatma Gandhi.
But yeah, it's really interesting to see this illustration because normally you see it in really low quality, so it's really interesting to, yeah, I'm just having a really nice look at that than usual. Something that this book covers that the original book actually did too, except here, to be honest, I think they actually show way more cartoons in this bigger one compared to here. Basically, here you got Coonskin, and this other one wasn't even called Coonskin, it was just a general category, the Melting Pot. But here, yeah, you get all sorts of all of these, and like I said, I really think it's like a lot more here compared to the digest. And then yeah, and then here you even get Jewish jokes that were in here in the digest as well. I'll even pull it up if I can get it. Yeah, here you go. I think it's actually a lot more mixed, whereas here they definitely really organized it way better. That is one bulbous butt, I have to say. And then yeah, of course, the Figgles, which was actually in this book too. Except yeah, no, here they show much more. I remember seeing that and going, oh okay, and then it turns out yeah, that actually was in the Calgary Eye Opener too, the digest. Yeah, right here. Honestly, I think a new point I should definitely bring up is honestly, I think I'm starting to realize my biggest problem with this digest is just the freaking layout. It makes it really hard to remember where on earth are some of these cartoons every single page. So when I'm trying to pull up an example, like, oh, I remember this cartoon from this page, I have to really skim through it and go like, oh god, I really need to remember where it was on the page. And it's like, good god, compared to here, where, I mean, look at this, it's much nicer layouts that you can just look at and immediately go, yeah, okay, I remember now where it is. And we'll have no problem. But yeah, that's my biggest critique. And then yeah, there is a haram jokes, which in my opinion is very incompatible with Western civilization. It's a very Islamic thing to do. Christianity forbids such a thing. However, something I find amusing is this cartoon here with these eyes. Looking at that, it was just like, I look at that and immediately reminded me of these German film posters I seen from Joseph. Yeah, definitely Joseph. Why did I say Joseph? Sorry, some names with a J. I immediately think like Jesus. But yeah, like by Joseph Finneker, and his posters are really nice. But yeah, I just look at them and just go, oh, you know, maybe what if I drew a girl like that? But yeah, and yeah, these posters were mainly during the Weimar Republic. Right. But well, the coloring here, as I've said, is definitely like, since some parts definitely have coloring that was not in the original comic, or maybe it was, I have no clue, but regardless, it's definitely more nicer coloring in this book, for instance, compared to the digest.
One last thing about the digest is that Little Gaga is indeed also included along with these caricatures. There's little descriptions that somewhat give an idea of what Karl Barks drew, but as I said, these are lacking when compared to this much more definitive book.
And then more jokes that some of these were in the digest, but I don't need to do a whole here this and that comparison all day. But yeah, you have some more solid cartooning, including a cameo from Castor and Olive Oil. And this is I have something funny to say, and it's like, this is actually one of my favorite Karl Barks cartoons you see right there in the top. And funny thing is that is in the digest, but you know what's really funny about it being in the digest? In the digest, it's actually much bigger. So as a result, this is the one time that the digest actually wins in an area where this cartoon's actually much bigger than how this book here does it. It's a shame because there's actually plenty of detail that is kind of a bit compressed because it's so tiny. But yeah, essentially that's pretty much basically. Oh no, wait, we're not done yet. Yeah, you have some more nice cartoons, really nice detailing. This is one of my favorite cartoons by Barks. I love the kid robots. It's very, very funny. And then this very wonderful illustration here that, honestly, when I look at that, I just think, wow, that reminds me a lot of like Crumb, or just like in general, just looks like something that was done today. Honestly. So it's crazy to think, wow, that was like nearly 100 years ago. This was done. Very, very, very nice piece. I like it a lot. In my opinion, he should have kept the tattoo. And then yeah, that's another favorite cartoon of mine from Barks. And yeah, that's a very funny looking animal. But yeah, no, that's essentially basically about it with this book. Having looked over it all sorts of times and doing all sorts of research for this video, needless to say, it's definitely a well done book and a well fine collection that really collects a lot of Barks' cartoons, and it's just great to finally have a book here where I have all of them. It was relatively new, came out 5 years ago, and it's just like, yeah, very, very terrific, very terrific. One last comparison I just wanted to do was at the very end of the page. You do get the bears here, where in this digest you get this ad where, you can get a reprint that I don't think they're doing anymore, but I'd be surprised if they were. But yeah, no, essentially to wrap up with the book and overall, I suppose, this video, this is a really wonderful reprint that I definitely am quite the fan, and I'll totally be, from following this video and on, totally will be looking over and over, and will be trying to read as much as I can, because there's all sorts of stuff that, even in this video, I haven't really read yet myself. I haven't even really read much of those stories, admittedly. But yeah, it's really a nice look at Carl Barks's artwork before the Duck comics. And as I've said, I really would stress and say that honestly, it'd be really nice if Fantagraphics ever did consider bringing this book to the English and into America. It'd be really great, because it's a magazine about, well, earlier we learned that, yeah, this was a Canadian magazine, but then it became an American one. I do think it is funny it kept the Calgary name. But yeah, overall, it's just been a funny journey. This book, well, this digest, it definitely was always a lacking digest to me. I remember reading it the first time just going, wow, that's it. It's all tiny and small, how lame. It's whatever. But then this book, on the other hand, it's much bigger. Actually keeps the original logo to the magazine, because that was the logo for most of the issues, especially back when Carl Barks was doing it. But yeah, it's a really wonderful book, and I totally would recommend it. Like I said, though, there's not too many copies. There's not too many copies in existence, so if you really want to get your hands on this book, you better hurry, because yep, there is not too many copies to spare in this world. But hopefully, maybe Egmont, maybe they could make a more wider release, or maybe, as I've said, please, maybe Fantagraphics could put out more of these. But yeah, I feel like to conclude this video, I will leave you with what. Oh yeah, I forgot that there's like one last cartoon here, but I was just gonna say, I will leave you with what this says here in English.
Kiss and close. Literally, kiss and end, meaning a kiss and goodbye, an idiom for signing off. Since Bob Edwards was the one with whom all the fun began, he should also have the last word. This prayer, which he wrote for his political magazine, appeared in most issues of the Eye Opener as a humorous epilogue. Lord, let me stay on the path of virtue, and not lose control even if I seem to have 4 dozen appointments to keep. Let me not bow to those above me, nor kick those below me. Let me rather enjoy myself with the boy and the fool and win the game. Lead me to truth and beauty, and do not betray me with their names. Let me rename sensible, but not too sensible. Let me not take myself or the world too seriously, and give me more people with whom I can laugh, and fewer with whom I must laugh. Let me not condemn a man for his grammar, nor a woman for her morals, for neither of them is responsible. Preserve my sense of humor, values, and proportion. Let me be helpful while I live, but not for too long. That will be all for today. Lord, Amen.
Everybody do me, kick me, kite me, don't you black or white me. All I wanna say is that they don't really care about us.